What up, y'all? Coming to you with week 3 of the NFL season in the books. A wild one today. A lot of stuff all over the place, but I think the first thing to go to, we just did wrap up Sunday Night Football, which again, I'm getting used to this being done at 10:30 at night. I don't know how people on the East Coast do it, man. I would not be able to handle that. But Steelers hold off the Raiders in a game that was not nearly as close as the final score will indicate, 23-18, but they controlled this game most of the way. And then I'm no ref conspiracy theorist, but if you were one, you would say this was a prime example of the refs trying to make this game close, because there were 3 bona fide, really poor calls that kept the Raiders in this game. A roughing the passer call where apparently you're not allowed to have the head hit the shoulder of the quarterback now either. Can't hit them below the waist, and you can't hit their shoulders now either. There was a weak pass interference call. The ball was probably uncatchable. And then supposedly on the field goal that the Raiders kicked, using the snapper or one of the Raiders players to leapfrog up to try to block the kick is what the Steelers were called for. Again, not after seeing the replay, not totally sure that happened. Regardless, 3 really weak calls, and then the Raiders still kick the field goal to make it a 5-point game with only 2.5 minutes left. Sure, they had their timeouts, but that's a very poor decision by Josh McDaniels, and they kind of deserve to lose for it. So big time win for the Steelers. They get to 2-1. The big headlines to talk about, though, from this week, we're going to talk about 2 teams. We're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs and the Miami Dolphins, because here are 2 teams that are separating themselves. Kansas City's 2-1. They're not 3-0. Miami's 3-0. The Dolphins first. If you're the Denver Broncos, maybe just pack up and go home. I mean, maybe just don't even show up next week. This was brutal. And a 70 burger for the Miami Dolphins. 70 points. Most score in the NFL since 66. They could have set the record all time if they kicked a field goal at the end of the game. Mike McDaniel decided not to. That's where he drew the line, apparently. 2 different running backs for the Dolphins scored 4 touchdowns today. That's how insane today was. Denver could do nothing, and if you're Sean Payton, man, in the end, Russell Wilson's numbers ended up being pretty good because they were just throwing the ball the entire second half. But this was rough, and this has got to be the low point, and I don't know what they do going forward. This has not been a good start to the season. It's not been, so far, very good for Russell Wilson, and that really pains me to say, given what I'm wearing. I was really hoping for good things for him in Denver, so it's looking really bad right now. If you're Kansas City, I'm sorry, not Kansas, if you're Miami, things are looking pretty great. Their offense has been absolutely unstoppable. People forgot how good their offense was last year. Until Tua got hurt, and they've picked up right where they left off. They look freaking unstoppable, and it's really the way Cincinnati has started. I know there's a lot of football left, but the way Cincinnati has started, with how inconsistent Buffalo's looked at times, this could be a path between. It could be Kansas City on a collision course with Miami the way that they're playing, which takes us to the Chiefs, and they made Chicago look even worse than Denver. The sky's really falling in Chicago. Justin Fields does not look good. Looks awful. And I was not buying the Justin Fields hype at the beginning of the season. Didn't really understand it. And he hasn't played to that. And you can blame plenty of that on the coaching and on the play calling. But he himself has not proven in almost 2.5 seasons now at the NFL level that he's an NFL quality passer. He just hasn't. And you're going to have to do that, and he hasn't done it. So that's disappointing if you're Chicago. Kansas City puts up 41, wins 41-0 in a game that wasn't even that close. Travis Kelce catches his touchdown. It was awesome to watch my Twitter and Instagram feeds today because Taylor Swift's at the game. Supposedly the 2 are dating, and this is like some gigantic story. And to see the people on my Twitter and Instagram feed who don't pay attention to football at all talking about this, and then the people on my Twitter and Instagram feed that were so upset that people were talking about this and not the football. And the 2 kind of intermingling, 2 groups of people that never really intermingle on social media. That kind of stuff was hilarious. But Travis Kelce having no problem. The Chiefs having no problem. Pat Mahomes gets his ankle rolled up on. Who cares? We're still going to score 41. So things are looking great in Chief land. Week 1 looks like a long time ago. Got to talk about the Seahawks really quickly. Big time win today. This was a game, fairly typical Seahawks under Pete Carroll game, in that we let the other team, in this case Carolina, hang around for far too long. Kicked 5 field goals before we scored our first touchdown. And it's very typical Pete Carroll. 3 times in the red zone without scoring a touchdown. Never put your foot on the throat. Never put them away. Let them hang around. Andy Dalton ended up having big time numbers today, which was to be expected. The kind of bend but don't break that the Seahawks plays right into the hands of a veteran passer like him. But they got home, got some sacks late in the game, and then the offense got into the end zone. And the last couple drives of the game, there was no stopping them. So ultimately, really nice win to get to 2-1. They have to make their hay in the front half of the schedule, because the back half of the schedule is going to be much more difficult. But this is the kind of win that they've got to have, and they got the Giants next week on Monday Night Football. So a big opportunity there. Somehow the Cowboys lost today to Arizona by double digits. 28-16 is the final. I don't know how that happened after the first 2 weeks of the season. Josh Dobbs gets his first career win. That's just insane. If you weren't familiar with the NFL, here you go. Welcome to the NFL, where anyone can win on any given week. That was sure shown this week with Arizona, a team that probably as much as any team in the league is that team that who knows if they're going to win a game this year. Now maybe Chicago looks like that team. But a big-time win for Arizona, and that's awesome. They do not have playoff aspirations this year. They're playing without Kyler Murray for who knows how long, at least one more game. But they get a big-time win against a Cowboys team that the media hits on this is going to be hilarious this week. I can't wait to see the Stephen A. Smith reaction Monday morning. I'm no Stephen A. Smith guy, but that's worth tuning into. And then Green Bay comes back. They get a big-time comeback win in Jordan Love's first game, starting at Lambeau, coming back and beating the Saints in a game that the Saints just absolutely blew. So 2 other games of note. Gardner Minshew is a winner again in the NFL. Anthony Richardson out with a concussion. Minshew comes in, leads the Colts to come back to beat Baltimore with a field goal at the end of overtime. Baltimore had plenty of chances to win this ballgame, and Justin Tucker had a 61-yard try to win at the end of regulation that was on target, but about a yard short. And that's what happens when you're kicking on grass instead of turf. So disappointing for Baltimore. That's a game that they're going to want back at the end of the season when they're in the thick of a playoff race against a Colts team like that. But lots of happenings all over the league. The last game that's really worth mentioning is the Minnesota-LA game, being the LA Chargers. And for both these teams, these are teams with playoff aspirations who started 0-2. They both needed a win very badly. And like they have all season, Minnesota put up big numbers and then had just awful turnovers that kept them from having the game that they should have. And then they drove again, and then another just terrible turnover at the end of the game to allow the Chargers to win it. The Chargers did what they needed to do on offense. Keenan Allen had a massive day. They have no running game without Austin Eckler, and that hurts. And it hurts me as I have Josh Kelly on my fantasy team. But that big-time win the Chargers had to have. They got the stops. They forced the turnovers when they needed to. And the stat heads will say that this is just statistical analysis rearing its ugly head at the Vikings. They won all those one-score games last year. That statistically, that's going to come back and bite you later. And it is, because they're losing close game after close game to start this season. So, anyways, if you got all the way to the end, this is on YouTube as well, Justin Talk Sports, and it's on Instagram. Please like and subscribe it, and really appreciate all the support from everybody. Love.